Okay, can I do this? Thank you. Okay.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us this morning. JJ, you can start us off.
Jeff, after watching the film of the Texas Southern game, what were some of your big takeaways?
We're just defensively, we didn't tackle real well, weren't as sound on some gaps as we wanted to be. And that was disappointing, offensively. Didn't run the ball real well, but a lot of that's dictated by the way the defense plays. And you go back and watch, and y'all been around me long enough to understand that you give me one-on-one, we're going there outside. I'm not going to try to run I'm not going to try to run the ball into a bad look. There's sometimes you have to. And when we had those opportunities, we didn't do it very well. Obviously, 3rd down and 1 was a huge disappointment, not to be able to run the ball for a first down. And special teams, really excited about the play of our kickoff return team, the first touchdown in school history. I'm very disappointed in our Night Stalkers, our kickoff team. And so overall, I think you asked me after the game, JJ, what my assessment was of the 4 games. I didn't have a real good answer for you at the time, but looking at it, we played really well against Houston and lost, played really well against Texas and lost, didn't play very well against Army and won, and didn't play very well against Texas Southern and won. So, that's why I always talk about, we're disappointed right now as a team. So we didn't represent the brand. We didn't feel like we were not as physical on defense as we wanted to be. We did not run the ball very well. And our Night Stalkers were not very good kicking the ball off and covering.
Greg?
Jeff, how are you guys adjusting the practice schedule this week to be ready for a Friday night game on the road?
We practiced last night, believe it or not. We just, kids know I'm upset. They're upset. So we put the ball down. We went to work last night. So we've already got in 1 practice. So Tuesday's already done. And today is Monday because the kids' class schedule. But tomorrow will be Wednesday, even though it's a Tuesday, and so forth the rest of the week.
What were the advantages of getting out there yesterday versus trying to fit it in today? Is that even possible with the way the schedule looks today?
We just had already, it's a Friday night game. And if we're 0-4 or 4-0, it doesn't matter. I mean, you gotta go get this one. And there couldn't be a worse time for us to play a Friday night game with the way our injury situation is right now. But we've got to find a way to get back on that plane Friday night. If it's 3-2, 7-6, or 68-67, and man, that Saturday off is going to feel like a bye week for us if we could just find a way to get home. And wouldn't you know, Middle Tennessee's playing better than they've ever played right now. It is what it is, man.
Are you able to go a little bit lighter this week, the same way you did last week, or is it full speed ahead given the stakes of this game coming up?
No, it's full speed ahead. I mean, we are, we got to go. I mean, it's the 70 players we picked to get on that plane Thursday have got to have a full week of practice against a very, very good Middle Tennessee team.
I know last week you mentioned it was 21 players on the injury report. Do you have a gauge of where you are from a health perspective and how many might be limited or missing when we get to Friday?
It won't be 21, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be. A few of those guys could not practice last night, which is unfortunate. So if they can't practice this week, they won't be making the trip.
How close are the guys at offensive tackle to returning? We've been talking about that all year. Any progress towards recovery there?
Doesn't look good.
How about Dejuan Taylor? It looks like he was back out there from the video that got posted.
He was moving around. We'll see. I'd say it's 50-50.
And then Rashad Wisdom, we saw him go down in the game as well. That's a new one. Can you provide any update on what the outlook for him is?
Still evaluating. Could not practice.
JJ.
Jeff, when you look at your offense, I know you're not happy with the pass run split, but you guys are still putting up some big numbers. So I guess where do you find that balance on the evaluation of the offense?
Well, common sense still prevails. We're built where the quarterback has control of this thing, and if it's there, we're going to take it. Where I'm disappointed, I would rather run the ball more than we are right now, but that's not the way people are playing us. When people play us differently, we'll run the ball more. But right now, they're not. And for the life of me, I don't know why you single covered our receivers, but if they're going to do it, we're going out there. And I know it looks great when it hits, and when we don't catch it and we're punting it, it's not great. But I just don't believe in running the ball into looks where they got extra hitters in there. And this coordinator is as good as we've gone against. We've never exported this guy. He has held us in the 20s for 2 straight years in a row. And it's even misleading because our defense has been so dominant the last 2 years against them. So he has really had our number, and we have a lot of respect for him. Coach Schaefer does a fantastic job. They are very well coached. They know their scheme, and he does a fantastic job. I mean, Stock's been there 17 years. They're trying to fire a coach every week nowadays. And at 17 seasons, that's pretty remarkable.
And then when you look at your defense, you mentioned, I guess, tackling and getting in some wrong gaps. Was that kind of the bulk of what we saw, I guess, against Texas Southern on your defensive side?
We busted some coverage back there too. Turned some guys loose. There's a lot of things we got to clean up right now. But I also want to give credit to that quarterback and that running back. I mean, those guys were good, and I saw something that Saban said I thought was pretty spot on. The 42-point, that everybody keeps talking about, spread. Either the guys don't know what they're talking about picking the spread, or our guys let that affect the way they prepared and played. And I would say it had more to do with the way we prepared and played, and not to take anything away from Texas Southern. We're disappointed in our performance.
Back to you, Greg.
Jeff, after the game, you seemed a little bit maybe curious would be the right word about some of the penalty calls that were against your guys in the first half. When you looked back on it, did you see anything that needs to be cleaned up there, or still kind of happy with how the guys played and then the call is what it is?
I mean, you can go watch it yourself and decide. Kavorian did a fantastic job all the way down the field. They were mixed up with each other, and the guy, went down on the sideline. They called it a personal foul. Gavin's holding penalty. You can go watch it and decide what you believe. That was a huge penalty in the game. Then we had the, tackling late in a pile. You can go watch that and decide. I do agree that if they say our kid was running his mouth, then that's what they said, right? So I had to take them for their word on that one. And and we held like crazy. Vinley went back to his sumo wrestling technique and just slammed the guy to the ground. It was an obvious hold. So officials have a hard job. I'm very empathetic to those guys. But for them to have 0 penalties in the first half, I will say they did have a roughing the punter, that the penalty was declined by me. So those guys did the best they can. They had no bearing on the game whatsoever. We had 0 penalties in the second half, and we just got to continue to focus on that.
And you also,
I want to brag on our kids too. We had 0 pre-snap penalties, 0. We had no illegal procedure. We had no issues pre-snap, and that's where I am most concerned always. Stuff happens during the game, right? The face mask penalty was a legitimate call. I mean, we tackled the kid on his face mask. So those are good calls, and those things are going to happen in the game. You can't help that. Pre-snap drives me insane. So that's the big focus of the week, and we had 0 pre-snap penalties.
and later in the game, you guys had an opportunity to get some of your younger players in there for a few reps. Did anybody jump out with their chance to show what they could do?
I thought Eddie Lee played well. Chris Carpenter played well. Walker Beatty is going to be a really good offensive lineman. Luke Lopez played well again. So defensively, Tripp had a really good ball game. Zach Causey had a really good ball game. Go back. I know Kavorian fumbled, but watch the block Kavorian threw right after that to spring the touchdown. Then the block that Zay Frazier had to get Chris in the end zone as well. Kyle Wakefield had a good ball game. He was a player of the week as well. We had some young guys. Avery Morris with interception, another young player. Dejuan Griffin, first interception in his career, another young player. And I'm probably leaving guys out. I'm going to throw it out there. So Carberry and JJ get on me as a really good question that the head coach was not prepared to answer. And I hope I did a good job there. Well, I'm sure I left somebody out.
You mentioned Walker Beatty, and it was interesting to see him in the rotation there so quickly after moving over. Why was it important to get him an opportunity in this game?
Well, one, you know how injured we are there. And 2, he's freakishly talented. You can just watch how skilled he is. And once he learns what's going on, he's going to be a really good football player there, in my opinion. It's awful early to make that prediction, right? But he shows all the humility, intelligence, strength, unbelievable feet, coachable, hungry. So he shows a lot of things that make you believe. Those tendencies usually correlate to really good offensive line play.
And we saw Ben Rios and DeAndre Marshall got their first opportunity to show what they could do in a game situation. Did you learn anything about them and their readiness to compete? Should you guys need them sooner rather than later?
Just they are what we thought they are, right? I think that might have been the old Denny Green line there many moons ago. Only the old heads probably know about that one. But they're big. They're athletic. They're very coachable. They love the city, and they both played well, and it doesn't surprise me.
JJ.
Jeff, what is it about this Middle Tennessee team that they always play you guys really close?
They're so good on defense. Their scheme, they believe in what they do. They do it very well. You've had the same guy there for a long time doing the same thing, so they recruit to a certain way, and you can just tell that really same offensive scheme forever. They've been playing those little receivers and air raid forever. Just consistency. Stock has just been there a long time. Those kids really believe in him. He's a good football coach, and they've had a lot of success for a long time. And they play us tough every single year.
They looked pretty physical against Miami too. Is that something that concerns you, especially with your health situation now?
Yeah, and especially old Stock, man. He just told them too. After he did it, I can't wait to get to that point in my career where I can just start telling the University of Miami, he did. He told the truth though. Which what I like about those stock, man. Those guys went in there and whipped a really good Miami team physically. And I'd say it's fluke, but I've watched the game and it wasn't. And I've seen them play us 2 years in a row. They're just tough kids, man.
What are you expecting from that environment Friday night? I think they're going to have a blackout and probably a pretty big crowd.
So we hear. I mean, they're supposedly wearing their black uniforms and going to make it a big deal that the Roadrunners are coming to town. I think going to Army and going to Texas is really going to benefit us Friday night. Those are two hostile environments our kids have already been in. And we believe in our triangle and we believe that it travels. We really believe that. And I could tell by the way we practiced last night that we'll show up, man. And we're historically known for being in one possession ball games. So I would imagine this thing will go right down to the very end.
Back to you, Greg.
Yeah, Jeff, you mentioned Middle Tennessee's game against Miami. It's not every day that you see a team pull a 25-point upset. And you mentioned the physicality, but what else jumped out that allowed them to kind of overcome a game they weren't really expected to perform that well in?
Their speed at receiver, how they just literally ran right by Miami. Had a 99-yard touchdown. I had two other ones that were long. I wouldn't know the exact depth, but I would say they're plus 70 for sure. That what I would say, how hard the running back runs, how fast they play, the tempo, how much better the quarterback's gotten. We had them shut out last year, and they brought this kid in the game, and they scored 2 touchdowns as soon as he came out there. So we probably started his career. So I hope he's grateful.
And their run defense seems like one of the best in the country so far to this point in the season. What allows them to be so successful up front?
Their 4-down guys are really good. Their linebackers are physical. They do a great job playing cover 4. Those safeties know where their fits are. When they get to their cover 3 packages, they know where their fits are. Just a lot of consistency with the same staff for a long time. And when you're, at a school like UTSA or Middle Tennessee, a lot of times those coaches get picked a lot. So you're having constant turnover at coordinator, and Stock has been able to maintain, Coach Schaefer there for a minute. I don't know the exact length of time. I know it's been 3 years for sure because they've done a really good job. And I know it's more than that. I don't know the exact number. Do you know how long he's been there, Greg or JJ? I don't even know.
I do not have that for you, unfortunately. And I wanted to ask you about Dejuan Griffin. You mentioned him earlier. He made his first start in this game this weekend. What led you to want to give him that opportunity?
He was close to starting all of them. He's been right around there. And so I was happy for him. And he played well. All 4 of those corners, Xavier Spencer, there's another one that played well. Young, I don't see Xavier Young anymore. He's played so much for me. But he played well. All 4 of those corners played well. So that was good to see. Owen Pee-wee ran down, was very explosive on the kickoff team. I remember seeing that as well. Cinque ran down on the kickoff team and was physical down there. I had a great tackle on the punt team. So yeah, all kinds of names are coming to me now that y'all asked the question 5 minutes ago.
JJ.
Jeff, what can you tell us about Chris Carpenter's journey to get to this season? I guess, was it close that he almost wasn't on this team?
I've known Chris forever. I taught his mother, and a lot of times those kids know they should come play for me, and they get those Power 5 eyes at the very last moment, and they make a bad choice. And he decided to go to Colorado, and once he got there, he knew he made a bad choice. Got in the portal. We got him back. He was in a bad way mentally, and just recovering from that. That's tough on kids. That's tough. And boy, his mom and I and his high school coach have really put a lot of time into Chris off the field. And whatever happened that night, he called me on vacation at 11:30. And I remember telling Carrie, I'm like, baby, I've got to take this call. If he's calling me on a Saturday night at 11:30, I'm worried about him. And man, he is just really taking care of his business, man. His schoolwork, what he's done to come out of that mess, and just off the field. And talent has never been an issue with Chris. And so happy for him. And his mama is just beyond happy. And I've raised 3 kids. I know what that's like. And I'm really happy for Chris.
Greg?
Jeff, you mentioned Chris Carpenter. What's the outlook for his development as a receiver, and how would you describe how he's progressed in that part of the game?
Oh, well, like with all of our receivers, we've got some good young ones. There's just 3 guys up in front right now that are really special. And every time you take one of those guys out of the game, if you feel like you're not doing what's right by the team. But I would expect to see him get more and more as his confidence grows. And we're really excited about his future.
Normally, I would anticipate that somebody with his build might be in the slot role, but you have him listed as a Z on the depth chart. How does he kind of fit into the offense, or what is his skill kind of profile?
He has elite speed, and whenever you've got elite speed, there's a lot of things you can do with him. So he can really run, and he plays the ball very well down the field. It's just a matter of getting him out there and when, and which one of those great ones do you take out when you put him out there?
And can you shed any more light on that situation you alluded to with the late night call when you were on vacation, the situation you helped him through, what that was, and kind of how you've seen him grow since then?
He just needed to talk, and he just expressed to me where he was in his life, and he was tired of being at that spot in his life, and he was ready to come out of it and wanted some help. And self-reflection is always where it always begins. It doesn't matter how much mom tells you, doesn't matter how much high school coach tells you, doesn't matter how much head coach tells you, until you self-reflect yourself, make an honest assessment of yourself, then put in the work and never lose confidence. Never lose confidence. And he's stacked a lot of good days. I don't remember when I went on vacation, but I know it was towards the end of June, probably July. Since around that time, he's stacked a lot of good days on top of each other. We just got to keep stacking days, man.
Do a lot of guys come to you at some point or another in their career with kind of a heart-to-heart like that, wanting to kind of connect or look for some guidance, or is that more of a rare situation for somebody to step up like he did in that way?
It's not rare, but they're all different. Every single one of them is different. But the good news is when you coach 33 years, there's not much they come talk to you about you haven't talked about with somebody along the way. And I'm a human as well. I have my own struggles, right? So there's a lot of wisdom you can share with those young men. And I have a lot of guys on staff, and they don't all come to me always. There's always somebody on the staff they're gonna, G-haul with a little bit better. And that's what's great about having a staff that's as diversified as ours, as far as ethnicity, religion, color. I guess that is ethnicity. So I guess I said the same thing twice there. It's not a good choice of words, but we're a very diversified staff. I was trying to say how our youth and we have some very young guys on the staff, got some older guys like me and Coach Turner that have been around a little bit. So there's a lot of different situations. They don't all come to me for sure, but they all need help, man. They're young men, and some of them have unbelievable parents and I get it. Like his mom's an unbelievable woman, but I've told y'all this before, raising my own children. They won't listen to me, but if Coach Turner says it, it's the gospel, man. Or if, Coach Metzel back home says it, by gosh, it's the gospel. And they could be saying the exact same thing I said, but sometimes they don't want to listen to their parents.
That's a really interesting concept you brought up with the diversity of the staff and how it helps players relate. Is that ability to connect with different guys on the roster something you really have to think about when you put a staff together? Because there's obviously so many other factors to consider with who you want to bring on board.
It's a huge consideration in that you want to provide every child somebody on the staff that they feel like they can relate to.
Does that come down, I guess, to like finding guys with different backgrounds, or how do you sort of go about making sure that box is checked?
Yeah, again, we've been doing this a long time. So you want your coaching staff to reflect that. And we are very intentional when we choose our coaches that we represent that.
Anything else for Coach Traylor this morning? All right. Thanks, everyone.
And thank y'all. God bless. Birds up.